Welcome to season 2 of One Foot Down, a college fantasy football podcast on the Fantasy in Frames Network. We are talking everything transfer portal today. I'm Chris Battistel, and with me is Aidan Weingartner. You can find him at aweingartner13. We are going to cut the fluff and get right into this stuff. Aidan, let's get into it. Our first segment is transfer portal winners and losers, teams that upgraded significantly, key impact players they added, and CFF takeaways. Your first pick was a team that I debated on picking, but I could not bring myself to talk highly of this program. So I'm excited that you picked them. Aidan, tell us why FSU is taking a step forward with the moves they made in the transfer portal.
Yeah, so when I was going through all the teams, I obviously started with the ACC, and this Florida State FSU stuck out to me immediately. You kind of said like it's kind of like to talk about because like it can't be like it can't be the offense can't be any worse than last year, right? I mean, it's got to like nothing can be as worse as that.
It was bad.
I want to start here with their upgraded QB Thomas Castellanos, which I think for CFF he provides a great rushing ceiling. I think he has great rushing upside. I think he kind of rightfully or not got benched at Boston College last year, and then he left the program, and then the whole Bill O'Brien saga thing, and now he's at Florida State. So I don't know about you, but I really like the outlook for Thomas Castellanos here at Florida State for CFF.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to what he can do in that offense. We know that he's going to utilize his legs. He's got a decent arm, so I'm excited for what he's going to put together as a Florida State Seminole, man.
Yeah, staying with the backfield as Castellanos as a running quarterback. This was a recent addition, but they added Gavin Sawchuk out of the portal. I don't know what it was. It feels like that Oklahoma backfield, the best way I can describe it last year, was kind of weird. So I really like Gavin Sawchuk coming to Florida State this year to be that lead back. And then the outside, like Deuce Robinson's one thing, but they also added Squirrel White, who I feel like has been in college forever at this point. But I really like that as the top target for Castellanos. I'm not extremely high on this Florida State offense based off of last year, but I'm cautiously optimistic because I think they upgraded in every possible way, starting with QB with Castellanos, as we mentioned.
Yeah, the running back room, it's going to be tough to see Gavin Sawchuk finish as an elite running back option for the offense because it is so loaded. Roydell Williams is still there. Gavin Sawchuk just newly entered. They got that true freshman in Usmain Kroma, who's been electric throughout camp, and they're excited for what he's going to do. So it's going to be tough to see a pathway to success for Gavin Sawchuk, especially after the season he had last year at Oklahoma, because what he was able to do prior to that, the year before, especially down the back end, we were all excited for his potential output as a Sooner that last year, and he just didn't put it up. So we're hoping that he can get back to that 2023 production as a Florida State Seminole.
Yeah, you mentioned it's a crowded backfield, but if I were to bet on one name, I would in drafts, it would be Gavin Sawchuk. It is crowded, but the main name I would bet on if I were to is Gavin Sawchuk out of all of them.
Yep, I don't hate that. If you had to bet on a wide receiver, which one are you taking out of the room?
Because I'm not going to say I'm worried about the passing volume, but I'm curious to see how much passing volume there will be to go around. I will go with Squirrel White because I think he's the established veteran of this room, if you will. But yeah, I'll go with Squirrel White, but I am kind of not concerned, but just keeping my eye on the passing volume and how fast-paced they are and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's been tough. It was tough last year with DJU and the pass catchers they had. We saw Hakeem Williams go over to, I believe it was Colorado. He's a Buffalo now. So if I'm going to take a late round shot, as much as I liked Squirrel White, I think I'm going to try to chase the touchdown production of Deuce Robinson, big body, end zone, go up and get a target for Casti in that for his quarterback. But Casti hasn't had a lot of great information coming out of spring either.
But I don't think our point is that this offense, because of the volume concerns and all that, I don't think there's a weapon where you have to be like, oh my God, if I miss out on this guy. Like, it's not like must get. It's just a late run flyer, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. But definitely upgrades across the board based on what they weren't able to do last season as an offense, man. So, yeah, I like the pick. I went with my first pick, Penn State. Penn State Nittany Lions and their wide receiver room. Their pass attack last year was brutal if you relied on anybody outside of Tyler Warren. In the college football playoff loss to Notre Dame, not a single wide receiver caught a pass. That's not just bad. That's broken.
They did. It was for -7 yards.
Okay, there you go. So what we're hoping for ultimately is that Penn State has noticed their deficiencies, has recognized their deficiencies as a passing offense. And I mean, they have to at this point because Tyler Warren was their offense. 31% of the team target share, 32% of the receiving yards, 25% of the receiving touchdowns flowed through the tight end position. Their top wide receiver was an absolute bust. Harrison Wallace III opened with a promising output against Weak Virginia week 1 when he put up 26 fantasy points. But after that, he averaged 7.4 PPR points through the rest of the season. And over the last 6 weeks, he averaged 5.3. The bottom line in 2024, Penn State's wide receivers were complete ass last season. Untrustable. You couldn't plug them in. They weren't even good enough to be considered best ball wide receivers. You weren't getting much, if any, boom weeks out of these wide receivers. So what did Penn State do, Aidan? They went shopping in the transfer portal. They got Devontae Ross from Troy, first team all Sun Belt wide receiver. They got Trevor Pena, the $2 million wide receiver from Syracuse, who was top 15 in the country in receptions last year. Ross's 2024, 76 catches, just over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns. He averaged 18.3 PPR points per game. Big-time performances against his new Big Ten rival in Iowa, where he put up 142 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. The week after that, against Florida A&M, he put up 229 and 3. So he's a proven producer on the outside as your wide receiver 1. If you look at what Pena was able to do at Syracuse, 84 catches, 941 yards last year, 9 touchdowns. He's got the reliable volume, and he has that perfect slot profile for this offense. There are 160 receptions, nearly 2,000 yards, and 20 TDs between the 2 wide receivers last year. Absolutely dummied anything that Penn State's wide receiver room as a whole was able to produce in 2024. Tyler Warren's off to the NFL. Harrison Wallace, who we previously mentioned, has transferred to Ole Miss, and I don't even know where Omari Evans has ended up in the portal, but that has vacated 197 targets from this Penn State offense. Kotelnicki in his first year last season with Penn State kind of showed some good signs with efficiency metrics. He was first in the Big Ten in 15-plus yard pass play percentages and 5th in the country. That's not something we see too much out of Penn State's offense. In his last stops, he's ranked top 3 in yards per pass attempt, 15-plus yard pass plays, and big play percentage. Now, big play percentage factors in big passing plays and big running plays. We know Penn State's offense is going to most likely flow through those running backs. So we're hoping for a complete turnaround in 2024 from this wide receiver room that was dead in the water. With Ross and Pena, it's fully revived and potentially draftable again. Penn State was so close to a title shot. All they needed was some boss wide receivers to get over Notre Dame. The game was right there for them. Ross and Pena solved that problem and are now centerpieces for Penn State, not only in real life, but for fantasy success as well. Aidan, are you taking any shots on these wide receivers, and which one would you rather own?
So this is going to sound like a lame answer, but I have no idea. Like in drafts, I'll take whichever one like comes at a value because I'm just not sure of the situation right now. We know the OC's system over there. We know Penn State's system, not CFF producers at all, especially for the wide receiver position.
I agree.
I'll take whichever one comes at a value, but it's kind of like I have to see it to believe it situation. I know that's kind of a lame answer, but like I'm kind of skeptical right now, and I'll just take whichever one goes later and comes at a value, I guess. But I'm not like over the moon here.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's going to be tough to trust any of these wide receivers. If you look at the history of Penn State wideouts and how they have produced, you have to go back to 2021 with Jahan Dotson to find 1,000-yard wide receivers. So we're hoping that at the very least, Devontae Ross with his outside prowess and Trevor Pena with his yard after the catch abilities playing in the slot, kind of hope that they play into what Penn State wants to do offensively. Tyler Warren played all over the field. So with him gone, kind of hoping that these wide receivers can step up. I threw up a poll on X today, asking my followers, who would you rather own? Who is going to be the better Penn State wide receiver for 2025? Devontae Ross, Trevor Pena, or the field? And 60% to Trevor Pena. So they believe that the slot wide receiver in this system is going to be the go-to guy.
Who would the field even be?
At this point, I don't even know who the field would be. The tight ends possibly, but that's not a wide receiver. But I couldn't even tell you, man. So, but the field was second. Devontae Ross was third in the poll. So I don't know what that has to tell you there. I mean, not a lot of people have high hopes for Penn State.
I like the players themselves. I just don't like the system.
Yeah. You know, when I saw Devontae Ross go there, I was excited. I wasn't as down on the landing spot as most because I know Drew Aller being there, coming back for his potential final year. We know that he can stretch the field with his arm. But when I saw Trevor Pena land there, I was kind of nervous for Devontae Ross. So I'd rather have Trevor Pena. I'd rather have Trevor Pena on Syracuse. But if I had to pick one or the other, I think I'm leaning Pena in this system.
I would too. And I think because of the production, Devontae Ross will go higher, and I'll just happily take a value on Trevor Pena and be done with it.
Jorge Edwards in the chat says, is Drew Aller a top 20 quarterback in CFF, or does his lack of rushing upside make him a matchup dependent quarterback?
He has rushing upside on that. He has sneaky rushing upside. I think Penn State doesn't really use that. I wish they would use it more, but I think the additions of these wide receivers help Drew Aller more than the wide receivers themselves. So I think he can be a borderline top 20, 25 if everything breaks right and that system improves. I just think so many of the rushing volume and rushing touchdowns and just lack of passing attempts in general because of the running backs might hurt him a little.
Yeah, I can see that. But he's got the pass-catching weapons now, right? So if he can utilize that sneaky rushing upside, and now he's got these elite pass-catching weapons, we're hoping that he can take that next step. Fantasy and Frames. We got the poll over here. You can go vote. The poll's open for 15 more minutes. Go vote on who you think is going to be the leader for that Penn State wide receiver room. Let's move on, Aidan. You got another high-producing CFF program last year. Tell us your second pick for transfer portal winners, man.
Yeah, I got another ACC team here, and I got the Louisville, and I wanted to highlight a quarterback and wide receiver they added. So first, obviously, you lose Tyler Shark to NFL after he had an amazing 100-year college. No, I'm kidding. And then you add Miller Moss to replace him. And then at wide receiver, you add Dakari Collins, which I don't know about you. He was outshined by Casey Concepcion last year, who's now at I think it's Texas A&M. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's an A&M. Yep.
Okay, good. So who was outshined by him and a couple others at NC State. But I've thought for the past couple years that Dakari Collins is like a deep sleeper in drafts. I think he will be that again. But obviously, Chris Bell and Colin Lacey are coming back to Louisville. But can any of those be trusted in terms of like high level production and in the case of Lacey, like injuries? So I take a late sleeper shot on Collins, and I just really like Miller Moss and Tyler Shuck. This is such a trusted system of Jeff Brom. I don't see any like Miller Moss is a QB I want at CFF and just to see what happens. They really upgraded their offense, although it's a really established offense already. So I think it will just repeat from last year, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Miller Moss was a great ad, kind of that Tyler Shuck mold, pocket passer. He's not going to do too many crazy things that are going to cost your team the football. And Dakari Collins entering a busy wide receiver room. But I like the call there with Louisville, man. Still want to be contenders, right? So and they got that stud running back.
Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah. Isaac Brown, a dog, man. Isaac Brown, a dog. All right, so we got winners, FSU, Florida State, adding Thomas Castellano, Squirrel White, most recently Gavin Sawchuk and Deuce Robinson. Penn State's wide receiver room adding Devontae Ross and Trevor Pena from Syracuse. And we got Louisville adding Dakari Collins and new quarterback from USC, Miller Moss. Now, the next transfer portal winner, my pick, this was a tough one for me because I don't want to talk too much about Carson Beck, but I'm going to go with Miami, Florida. Miami was a CFF jackpot in 2024, but now total reset. They led the country in scoring, yards, and third down conversions last year. Cam Ward is off to the NFL, being drafted first overall by the Tennessee Titans. They've lost Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, and Isaiah Horton, who transferred to Alabama. They also lost Damian Martinez. Exactly. Everybody. All these guys were pretty much weekly hammers for fantasy last year, especially Xavier Restrepo, Cam Ward, and almost Damian Martinez. They lost their top 5 pass catchers, 80% of their receiving yards, and almost all of their touchdowns. Their returning wide receivers combined for just 13 catches in JoJo Trader and Nikar. Nikar entered the transfer portal, but then came back to Miami. So what did they do? Miami brought in a top 5 transfer class to reload, and they still have Shannon Dawson calling plays. His offense last year, 3rd in FBS in yards per rush, yards per pass, 15-plus yard passes, and overall big play rate. The system feeds fantasy points. So let's meet the new Canes, starting with the guy replacing Cam Ward, Mr. Social Media himself, Carson Beck, the new QB1 for the Miami Hurricanes. He's got some red flags. He's coming off that UCL injury that he sustained from Georgia, where he threw for almost 3,500 pass yards and 28 TDs. He averaged 20.3 fantasy points per game last year. He had monster games against Mississippi State. He put up 30 points against Alabama, and he did it against not so strong competition against Tennessee Tech. He did throw up some duds. That one game versus Ole Miss, where he put up 5.4 fantasy points. But we're not going to think about that right now. We're going to think about his role in that Miami offense. Now, they are saying that he should be ready for the opener against Notre Dame at the end of August. And he's landing on an offense that averaged 326 passing yards per game last year. The hope with Carson Beck, Aidan, and I don't know how high you are on him, at least this early in the season. The hope is that he can approach Cam Ward's output last season, at least passing. Cam Ward threw for over 4,000 yards. So if Carson Beck can get close to that 4,000-yard mark, close to that 30 touchdown range, if he stays healthy and that elbow is good, there's a potential here for him to be a draft steal based on where he's going. I believe right now, according to fantasypoints.com, his ADP is around QB 35, 36, and he's going around the 16th round. So that's great value with the offense that he's going into. So who is he passing to with all those wide receivers leaving that program? He's got new transfer CJ Daniels, who came in from LSU after spending a few seasons at Liberty. In his career, he's a 2,500-yard receiver, 22 touchdowns. He was kind of stunted last year in LSU's busy wide receiver room, where he caught 42 catches for 484 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mentioned it at the top. Miami lost almost 3,600 receiving yards. And Daniels, as of right now, is projected to be the wide receiver 1 for Miami. He's a vertical threat wide receiver, and Dawson's system thrives on vertical shots. He ranked top 5 in big plays nationally. So if you wanted to project kind of what his outlook could be, 60 to 70 catches, 800 to 1,000 yards, 7 to 9 touchdowns in this offense would give him wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 upside. So the potential there for CJ Daniels to build on what he did at LSU last year is there for Miami. They got another sneaky wide receiver add in Tony Johnson from Cincinnati. The slot wide receiver is what you want to attack in this Miami offense. We saw what Xavier Restrepo was able to do when he was part of the Hurricanes. His time in Cincinnati, 48 catches, 449 yards, 6 touchdowns. He showed up in big games against Kansas State, where he put up 21 points, and UCF, where he put up 17. He's walking into competition, though. Ray Joseph is currently the listed starter slot wide receiver. And then they got star freshman who's been lighting up spring in Malachi Tony. So if he's announced the starter, Tony Johnson is going to be a wide receiver that you want. And if he's announced the starter, his ADP is going to skyrocket because of his role in that offense. So he's a player that I will draft late right now. I was drafting him late when he was on Cincinnati, and I'm going to continue to draft him late while he has the potential to be part of that Miami offense and in that slot wide receiver role. But I'm excited for Miami. You have any takes on the Miami offense there, Aidan?
Yeah, I think the key word, and you mentioned it with this team and offense in general, is potential. Carson Beck, I think he's a fine player for CFF, but like I thought this lane spot at first was just fine, but it's kind of growing on me more and more as I think about it. But I always go back to Shannon Dawson's system. If you're expecting from Beck Cam more levels of production, I think you're going to be disappointed, unfortunately. But if everything clicks and if Shannon Dawson can do it once again with a whole new cast of characters, if you will, then I think this could be a CFF gold mine. I don't know where you're at with it, but I think this has the potential. We're just going to have to see how it all shakes out in terms of receiver competitions and whatnot. And if Beck is fine off of that injury, then yeah, like you said, I think is a draft steal at value right now.
Yep. Agreed. Oh, and Jorge Edwards says, who knew that UCL injury would have him fumble his girlfriend as well? Yeah, and his Lamborghini got stolen. I mean, he's just having a time.
He's just having a life right now.
Yeah. O says, I could see him relying on the run early on. I could see that too in Miami. They got Mark Fletcher. They got Jordan Lyles. They brought in NDSU running back in Shamar Brown. So, I mean, I could – yeah, they got a good amount of running backs there that they could rely on early in the season while they monitor or break Carson Beck in with that UCL injury. Jorge says that's a good call. It is a good call. Why ask him to do more in a Barron situation? Yeah, exactly. If he doesn't have to, why put more stress on that elbow early? Who helps who more? Beck making the receivers more fantasy viable, or do the receiving options make Beck more fantasy viable? What came first, the chicken or the egg, Aidan?
Yeah, it's inverse. I'd rather have the shots on the receivers just because I think the receivers are a bit more established. Like there's a couple receivers that are a bit more established in this system. And then there's a couple like high-level names coming over. So I'd rather have the receivers than the inverse, but it is close.
Yeah, I'd rather have the receivers too. If the receivers aren't going to create separation, if the receivers aren't going to get themselves into situations where they're going to get the ball, if the receivers can't go up and make contested catches, then there's not much a quarterback's going to be able to do to get these guys the ball.
And the system, like you mentioned, the slot receiver for the system. So I think the system tends very nicely to that as well.
Yep. Agreed. So those are our transfer portal winners. FSU, Penn State's wide receiver room, Louisville, and Miami. Before we get into the losers, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Head over to YouTube if you're watching this somewhere else or listening. Subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel if you're listening to this across Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music, wherever you consume your podcast. Like the feed and leave a review. It's much appreciated. Write a review, 5 stars, 4 stars. It helps us help you chase those fantasy football trophies. And if you haven't already, head over to scottfishbowl.com/college and let them know that you're interested for the first ever Scott Fish Bowl Tadpole College Fantasy Football Tournament. I think they've already got 500 people signed up for it. There's going to be 50 leagues hosted by the great Eric Froton, 3 live drafts. I'm excited for this giant tournament. So make sure you head over to scottfishbowl.com/college and let them know that you want to play the game. All right, Aidan, we gave them winners. Now we got to break some hearts and give them some transfer portal losers. Who's your first team on the block, man?
I mean, you got to talk about the Cal running back room, right? Literally every single RB. Jadyn Ott transfers and opens the floodgates and no one likes the team anymore. And all 5 of them just transfer out. You probably know this more than I do, Chris, but I don't even know where the Cal RB room stands as of things stand right now. And that Cal offense, it's looking rough to say the least for this season. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, it really is. I'd have to check. I know there was a recent transfer. I'd have to go check at who it was. The name isn't coming to me right now.
I
know there was a recent
but I can't
transfer.
recall the name.
Yeah, but I still don't even know if it's going to be a transfer worth rostering at this point. Says Miami passing offers some high upside in the late rounds. Yeah, they do, man. There's a lot of guys that you're going to be able to snag. Even late rounds. I hate to go back to the winners here, but even the late rounds, Malachi Tony Johnson, Ray Joseph, all these guys can be had so late, and there's potential for them to put up big points. But
instead of paying up for CJ Daniels, just wait until those few.
Yeah, exactly. Even Josiah Trader, even JoJo Trader has the possibility to have a big year. But getting back to Cal, a lot of big losses. In that running back room. Jadyn Ott's gone. Kadarius Callaway's gone. Javian Thomas is gone. It's
Cardwell.
Byron Cardwell's gone.
They all just left.
Yeah, it's just all right, deuces, we're out of here, man.
Ott started the trend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not
well, he was, if I recall correctly,
out the door.
Last offseason, he was rumored to be transferring, and then he came back, right?
That whole thing. I'm staying. Yeah. He signed the helmet. I'm not going anywhere. And then played the Leonardo DiCaprio clip. Next year, I'm out of here, man. I can't take it anymore. But I don't hate it. It's a mess. They are definitely transfer portal losers.
Yeah.
My top transfer portal loser is Stanford, mainly the Emmett Mosley departure to Texas. But Stanford in 2024 was a total fantasy graveyard. And looking ahead to 2025, it's not looking much better. 2024, they limped to a 3-9 record for the fourth year in the role. And the the offense was brutal. 98th in scoring, 115 yards. The only guy that mattered for fantasy, at least for the whole year, Emmett Mosley came on a little bit near the end, was Elic Ayomanor, and he's gone to the NFL. 54 catches, 741 yards, 6 touchdowns. Coach got fired. Coach Taylor got fired in March, and just like the Cal running back room, that opened the floodgates. Emmett Mosley went to Texas. They lost Emmanuel Cisse to Arkansas, and they lost other players. They lost a bunch of defensive players, and it's not looking good for Stanford in 2025. And Mosley, for me, was the main one that got away. There was nothing you could have done with Ayomanor, but if they were able to keep Mosley in that offense, they had a little bit of hope. But
yeah,
he led all ACC freshmen with 48 catches, 525 yards, 6 touchdowns, 12.57 fantasy points per game across 9 games. He put up 42 fantasy points against Louisville when he had 13 catches for 168 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's a freshman Stanford record across all freshman wide receivers for fantasy. He put up 19.6 fantasy points against San Jose State and 15.3 fantasy points against the previously mentioned Cal. His 1.7 yards per route run was 15th amongst all FBS freshmen. 64% of his snaps came from the slot. So that's telling me that Emmett Mosley is very PPR friendly, and he's heading to an offense where he's going to be catching passes from Arch Manning. So if you want Emmett Mosley on Texas, we love it. Stanford without Emmett Mosley, Stanford is in the tank. Like I mentioned, they lost Emmett Mosley, Emmanuel Cisse, Justin Lamson went to Bowling Green, and their starter from last year, Ashton Daniels, took off to Auburn.
Yeah,
they were the 89th ranked passing attack last year, and unlike Penn State, who went out and bought Devontae Ross and Trevor Pena, Stanford has just been losing weapons and not gaining them. So they are definite transfer portal losers, at least for 2025, man. I don't know what 2026 is going to hold with Andrew Luck and Frank Reich there. But they've been bleeding, man. They've been bleeding players.
Yes, sure.
Says the freshman QB at Cal should be able to beat out Devin Brown. Yeah, Jaron Coway.
I'm not saying
Saga Polutele. I think I got it. But yeah, live arm. He's had a great camp. So has Devin Brown, though. Devin Brown's had a great camp as well.
He's been around for a while, too.
Yeah. Coming from Ohio State. Ohio State quarterbacks have done well once they've left Ohio State. So there's some potential there for Devin Brown if we're looking at history, man. But not Tate Martell. Tate Martell did not.
Let's not talk. Yeah.
So Stanford hard pass this year. If you got anyone on your do not draft list, drop it in the chat. Let us know who your do not draft list player is. Do you have one, Aidan?
For Stanford or just in general?
Just in general. Give me one in general. Is there a guy that maybe was drafted a ton last year, but this year you're just like, you know what? It's going to be a no from me, dog. We can get back to it.
I'd have to think about that.
We can get back to it. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Let's get into your next one, though, because you got a great one for transfer portal losers, because I agree with this assessment.
Tulane, boy, did they lose a lot. They lost Darian Mensah to Duke, lost Mekhi Hughes to Oregon, which is great for those two, but not great for Tulane. I don't know how off base or not I am here. Chris, you can let me know. But for CFF, I just stay away from the whole Tulane offense in general. Like, is there a single piece anyone would want at all?
As of right now, no.
Bauman left too.
I don't. Yeah, Bauman left. He went to
can't remember.
He went to Miami.
Yeah, there's another one.
Yeah, Bauman went to Miami. But yeah, I agree. And quite frankly, I don't think that there's players on Tulane that Tulane wants, let alone college fantasy football managers. Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree, man. Tulane definite losers. Not only did they lose Darian Mensah to Duke, they lost Mekhi Hughes to Oregon.
Yeah,
Their
not only
stud running back.
have my two picks, I'm like Cal and Tulane, like, oh, maybe there's no, I just stay away from those two offenses as a whole.
Yeah, you need to at this point. What was once who's that running back? Oh man, who was the running back that was behind Mekhi Hughes? Not the tip of my tongue.
Clinton Johnson last year.
That might have been it.
I think
there's another guy that I like taking late. There was that.
Last year. Barnes.
This year there's a guy like Barnes. Yes,
Arnold Barnes.
Yes, Arnold
not
Barnes.
Very good, but whatever.
Come on, you're coming for my late round picks.
That's how desperate we are. If he's the best Tulane guy, woo.
It's not looking good for fantasy managers. Yeah, I agree. Tulane, no bueno this year. We are not attacking Tulane's offense at all. And my last transfer portal loser, Purdue. Purdue's 2024 was an absolute dumpster fire outside of Max Clare, who transferred to Ohio State.
Yeah.
Not looking too much into what Purdue's going to do this upcoming year. Claire's gone. They lost Jamal Edrine. They lost Ryan Brown to USC. Elijah Jackson's gone. I think Purdue as a whole lost 30 players or somewhere around 30 players as a program. So, yeah, they're not going to be making much boilers this year in Purdue. So,
I feel like
definitely
Purdue's
not an
just
offense.
eternally bad. They're just eternally bad. They'll just never be good.
Yeah, no, I agree. But Claire was a bright spot last year, Aidan. Claire was a tight end you could, the one piece of this offense that you could plug into your lineup on a weekly basis. I don't know what his usage is going to be at Ohio State. I'm not looking forward to it too much because of how busy the room is. But I got no problem taking Max Clare in my drafts as my tight end 2, tight end 3, just because of the offense he's in. Is there anyone on Purdue that you think you might be picking up this year, or is it just a program like Cal and Tulane that you're just not touching?
Maybe as a Hudson Card's still there, right? So maybe.
Oh yeah,
I think so. Maybe as a late round sleeper, just because of the high end rushing upside. But other than that, I generally stay away.
Yeah. Yep. Good call, man. So we are not touching Cal's running back room because they are definite losers through the portal. We are not touching Stanford's offense. They're big losers in the portal. We are not touching Tulane's offense, another loser in the portal. And we are not touching Purdue's offense at all. So 4 programs where you're not going to want much out of these rooms at all, outside of possibly that freshman Cal quarterback. I'm just going to call him JKS from now on. Jokes.
You already did it once, so.
Yeah, I don't got to do it again, right?
Yeah.
All right, that is transfer portal winners and losers. We're going to get into some individual players and talk about some immediate transfer portal CFF impact players. We're going to give you 2 gems, 2 guys that we're going to project what their workload might be on their new teams, and 2 guys that could see possible opportunity spikes. Aidan, you want to lead us off with your possible CFF gem?
Yeah, I'm going to start at the quarterback position. I'm really excited for this Fernando Mendoza transfer from, we were talking about Cal, so sorry about Cal to Indiana. I'm really excited for the system fit here. I mean, Chris, look what Curt Cignetti did last year with Curtis Rourke. And Fernando Mendoza, by all accounts, has way more rushing upside than Curtis Rourke. So I am extremely excited for this transfer, and I'll be very aggressive in getting him in drafts this year. And he has weapons, he has returning weapons, transfers coming in, all that.
Yep. I'm looking forward to Fernando Mendoza in Indiana as well, and the value that we're able to get him at as a starting quarterback. And that's This is what I love about college fantasy football is that year in and year out, the landscape changes so much because of the movement. Like,
Yes.
you don't have to take a QB early in your drafts. You're going to be able to snag a guy like Fernando Mendoza in the mid rounds that is going to has the potential to put up some big weeks for you at Indiana. So, week in and week out, he has that potential to be a weekly starter. And I like the call there. I like the call. For me, I got Easton Messer, wide receiver, going from Western Kentucky to Florida Atlantic, a slot wide receiver with 46 receptions, 665 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. He averaged 9.74 fantasy points per game. He had some big games against Middle Tennessee, 5 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown where he put up 17.6 fantasy points. Balled out against UTEP and balled out against New Mexico State as well. As always, these guys who don't overly produce or have a small fantasy points per game total, he threw up a few duds, 2.7 versus Louisiana Tech and 3 points against Bama, but he ended the year with 5 double-digit outings in 14 games. That's better than any wide receiver at Penn State. Just wanted to bring that back up because Penn State was complete ass last year out of the wide receiver room. He was a gem at Western Kentucky, but now he's in South Florida with his QB. I might add, Caden Velkamp also went to Florida Atlantic, and that's where it gets spicy.
The connection started.
Yeah, you know it, man. Velkamp threw for 2,700 yards, 20 touchdowns last year, plus he ran for 300. Easton Messer saw 31% of those targets.
Ooh.
Now they're both at FSU. The wide receiver 1 and the running back 1 from last season are gone. So there's a vacant 80 to 100 targets, a minimum, in this wide receiver room. Messer's looking at 70 to 80 catches, 900 to 1,100 yards on the high side, 7 to 9 touchdowns. That puts him around 15 to 18 full PPR points per game. That's wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 territory. The connection's legit. But here's where their projection comes from. FAU's play caller is an air raid madman. Zach Kittley's coming in to Florida Atlantic, and that helps Messer's path to wide receiver 1 relevancy. Last year at Texas Tech, where Kittley was, Josh Kelly was the slot wide receiver, and he went off for 90 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He also saw 123 targets and put up 16 fantasy points per game. That's the blueprint. Messer's got a 95% slot rate over his career. He's a perfect fit for what this offense wants to run. FAU last season ranked 108th in passing last year. So Kittley's looking to come in with Velkamp, with Easton Messer, to kind of push that program to the next level. 100+ targets is in play for Easton Messer if everything goes right.
Yep.
Ceiling projection here, Aidan, because I love ceiling projections. I love high upside. Give it to me all day. Life's too short to bet the unders. 80 grabs, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, 16 to 20 fantasy points per game. That's wide receiver 1 upside from a mid-round pick. Messer's breakout is coming. Kittley and Velkamp are rocket fuel. This is your wide receiver 1 steal, man.
I agree. I think this could be. I love this call because I think this could be a very sneakily high-paced offense. So I think not enough people are talking about it. I think you'll be able to get Messer. If you can get a potential wide receiver 1 in the mid rounds, then that's awesome value. So,
agreed. Jacob McKay says John Mateer going to carry. I agree, man. I'm high in John Mateer going into OU. I'm not really fading him too much. These offensive coordinators the reason why he's at OU is because his offensive coordinator is there, right? So I'm looking forward to he's going up against SEC defenses now. So that's kind of the one drawback from John Mateer, but I'm going to quickly pull up Oklahoma's schedule, and I don't think it's that daunting.
Last year was brutal.
Last year was brutal. You're 100% right, but this year I don't think it's that bad. They open up their first game against Illinois State Redbirds, so FCS team. Week 2 against Michigan, which could be a little tricky. I'm not sure what Michigan's going to be this upcoming year with how their offense is going to roll. And then they got Temple, Auburn, facing their old quarterback in Jackson Arnold. They got the bye. Kent State, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee. And then they close out the season, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. That LSU game in college fantasy championship weekend has the potential for an enormous amount of fantasy output. I'm excited for that last game on the schedule.
He has elite.
It's going to take a lot to get there. Yeah, I agree. Xavier Robinson, Jacob McKay also says Xavier Robinson going to be a waiver wire gem this season. The waiver wire for college fantasy football for the first few weeks is so crucial to your success of your team, man, because you're not picking up scragglers like you are in NFL fantasy on the waiver wire for those first few weeks. You're not fighting over that one Wagyu piece of steak on the waiver that balls out or finds his role in week 1. There's a bunch of Wagyu steaks in college fantasy.
There's a ton
on your
options.
waivers. Yeah. I mean, you're just snagging all the Wagyus, man. You got a whole roster full of Wagyus if you do it right. Let's get into the next one. You've talked a lot about Cal, and you're not going to stop, brother. So tell us the workload projection for your running back.
Yeah, I'm sorry to keep picking on Cal here, but well, I'm not sorry because they all left. But Jadyn Ott going from Cal to Oklahoma. We talked about John Mateer opening up, with his elite rushing upside. I think they'll open up rushing lanes for Jadyn Ott. This looks to be a very high-paced offense, and there looks to be a ton of touchdown opportunity for Ott, and we know Ott is equally as good in the receiving game, so which leads to PPR points and CFF. So I love this, and that running back room has been cleared out pretty quickly. Clear runway for Jadyn Ott. I don't know if you're as high as me, but I'm very aggressive on Ott to Oklahoma this year.
Yeah, I like the fit. With Gavin Sawchuk leaving, their room wasn't that dominant. There wasn't that standout running man. I mean, Javonte Barnes had a decent season. There wasn't that standout guy. Jadyn Ott could go into Oklahoma and be that guy for them. And I love I love the fit. I love that he's on a team with a Russian quarterback that's going to open up lanes for him. It kind of takes away from a little bit of his grand total, but at the grand scheme of things, Jadyn Ott on Oklahoma has the potential to finish not as the overall RB1, but he has the potential to finish as an RB1. He's just going to have to, like a lot of these guys, man, they're going to have a lot of things go their way. So I like that. I like that call. Love that Jadyn Ott call. My workload projection running back is Rashul Faison, moving from Utah State to South Carolina. He was Utah State's workhorse with weekly upside, 198 carries, 1,100 yards. He averaged 5.6 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, 22 receptions, which is a nice little number for 99 yards. He averaged 13.5 PPR points per game in 2024, and he had 5 games where he rushed for over 100 yards, including 191 yards versus Hawaii. Despite Utah State's 4-8 season, he was a consistent RB2 flex for you week in and week out. Now let's get into his projection. He transferred to South Carolina with Lenore Sellers under center, Lenore Sellers 600 rush yards, 25% of the team carries. If you want to look at their RB1 last year, Raheem Rocket Sanders, who moved on to the NFL, I believe UDFA to the Chargers.
Yeah, he wasn't drafted, which 2 years ago he would have absolutely been drafted. But
yeah, that's Debbie too, man. Debbie C2C, you're investing in some of these guys that just absolutely bust. But Rocket Sanders with South Carolina last year, 881 yards, 11 rushing TDs. The spring camp buzz for Rashul Faison continues to hum. They said he has uncanny acceleration, and he's going to be a pass-catching weapon. The projected workload, 150 to 180 carries, 30 to 40 targets. That's the potential of 1,000 to 1,300 total yards, 10 to 12 TDs. I got him averaging about 15 to 18 PPR points per game, which would put him in RB2 territory. He's the ideal fit for the RPO heavy scheme. Sellers opens the lanes. Beamer trusts, Shane Beamer, head coach, is going to trust high volume running backs. We've seen that. I think he beats out Oscar Attaway. I think he beats out Fuller for the full-time touchers. The volume's going to be great, but it's Beamer's offense that is the real cheat code for me here. I'm excited for Rashul Faison.
I'm not saying this was a reservation. I'm actually curious.
Yep.
Are you, because this is a huge jump in competition. I mean, Utah State to South Carolina.
Absolutely.
It's huge. Yep. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not really a proponent to kind of have to target these G5 guys that move up to the P4.
Usually don't work out.
Usually don't work out. The success history is very, very small, but I like the build. He's built to be an SEC back. I believe he's over 210 pounds now. I like his ability with the acceleration, and I like what he's going to be able to do as a pass catcher. Also because the running back room is kind of wide open at South Carolina right now. So he's got the build. He's not coming up as a smaller kind of gadgety back who's only going to be used in certain situations. He's got the pass catching chops, and he's got already their production. I want to go back, and I should have done this. I should have done this for you guys. I want to go back and see how he performed against some of the bigger programs. That's kind of, I'm not going to say that's a huge tell, but that's a nice little measuring stick for what he could potentially do against some of these SEC teams. So workload projections here for Jadyn Ott to Oklahoma and Rashul Faison to South Carolina. Now we're going to talk about two guys who have the potential to see an opportunity spike on their new programs. Aidan, who do you got?
So this is like a sleeper that I don't think enough people at that are talking about right now, and that is wide receiver J.Michael Sturdivant transferring from UCLA to Florida. A couple of years ago as a freshman, I thought he had a lot of promise, and then last year kind of had a down year. Now transferring to Florida, he's going to be great with DJ Lagway as a big-bodied red zone target because Chim Dike's gone. Elijah Badger's gone. And I know 5-star marquee freshman Dallas Wilson is coming in, but that's a freshman. So, how is that handled? A DJ Lagway and a freshman. And then you have, who's the other one? Trey Wilson, who's kind of forgot about because of injury. Is he the same after will he quote unquote bounce back from injury properly? So I'm not saying I'm like aggressive in J.Michael Sturdivant, but I think this is a flyer you could take to potentially, I'm not saying he will be guaranteeing it, but potentially it'll be the wide receiver one because it's a pretty open target distribution right now for the Florida Gators. A lot going out and not a ton coming in.
Yeah. The opportunities there, man. Opportunities there. It's just up to him to have to take it, right? I like the call there with J.Michael Sturdivant. I also saw you had Jack Endries on the list. Cal to Texas. Another Cal guy for you. You want to touch on Endries at all?
I swear I didn't. I swear I did not do this on purpose, but the whole thesis behind my tight end to Texas thing is if you look at Sark's system, he's obviously very, very big on involving his tight ends, especially in the red zone. Look what he did 2 years ago what JT Sanders did. Look just last year what Gunnar Helm did. I mean, great fantasy performers, great touchdown upside. Same thesis there with Arch Manning going and Jack Endries.
Yeah. Great calls. Great call there. Love it. All right. My last guy, opportunity spike. Nic Anderson, transferred from Oklahoma to LSU, and there's a potential for a breakout in 2025. He broke out in 2023 at Oklahoma, 38 receptions, 798 yards, 10 TDs in 13 games. He averaged 17.1 yards per catch. During that time, he also averaged 12.8 fantasy points per game. He set the Oklahoma freshman record for touchdowns and had 300-yard games, including a 120-yard, 3-touchdown explosion against Tulsa. Injuries limited him to 4 games in 2024, but even in a lost season, he posted 113 yards and a TD on limited reps. LSU, though, gives him that wide receiver one runway. LSU lost 1,900 receiving yards from Kyron Lacey, Aaron Anderson, C.J. Daniels, and Mason Taylor. They also get return quarterback. Some have him as QB1 next year in Garrett Nussmeier, who threw for 3,700 yards and 26 TDs in 2024. The offense as a whole averaged 284 passing yards per game, which put him at 24th nationally. Nic Anderson transferred in December and immediately slotted into a starting role next to Kentucky transfer Barian Brown. He's expected to lead this group in targets. What that means for Nic Anderson's output: 70 to 90 catches, 1,000 to 1,200 yards, 10 to 12 receiving TDs, 15 to 18 fantasy points per game. The spring buzz for Nic Anderson, Aidan, has been loud and verified. In LSU spring game, Anderson caught 5 passes for 88 yards and a touchdown, drawing praise for his elite separation and hands. His head coach, Brian Kelly, one of the most cringe coaches in all of college football, has called him a big play guy who will stretch defenses. And that's what you want on an LSU offense. You want that big play wide receiver who's going to stretch the field. 6'4", he's got the size, and he's got the deep threat history. He's been touted as the clear alpha in LSU's wide receiver room, which has been a wide receiver factory. He's had first-team reps all camp, unlike previously mentioned Barian Brown, who mostly ran with the backup. So Nic Anderson is a guy I'm expecting to have a huge opportunity spike for LSU in 2025, man.
So there are a lot of mouths to feed in this LSU offense, but it sounds like you're expecting Anderson to rise to the top of that pretty quickly.
Yeah. And through the camp reports, I mean, it's been good for him. It's been good. He checks a lot of boxes. You know, he's proven production in the Power 5, 17.1 yards per carry. So he's got the explosive. He's an explosive deep threat. Wide receiver one opportunity in the top 25 passing offense. Verified buzz through camp. And you can possibly get him in the mid to late rounds of your drafts. I have to go into fantasypoints.com and find out what his ADP is to kind of get a good grasp of where he's going in these early drafts. If you go to fantasypoints.com, their ADP, their college fantasy football ADP is free. And I know they've gathered the information from a lot of best ball drafts so far. I believe Underdog is starting up their college fantasy football as well. But if you haven't already, make sure you head over to scottfishbowl.com/college and let them know that you want in on the first Tadpole Bowl, the Scott Fish Bowl college fantasy football tournament. We all know what the Scott Fish Bowl NFL tournament is and all the great things that Fantasy Cares and that whole tournament does, not just for the fantasy football community, but what the fantasy football community does for everybody else. I mean, it's just great stuff across the board, man. The giveaways they got, the stuff they do during the Christmas time and the holiday season, and everything else they do that I probably just don't even know about across the board is why the main reason why you want to sign up for these huge tournaments, man. But Aidan, season 2, hour down, probably one of the quickest hours I've had in 2025. I've enjoyed talking college fantasy football with you. You got any other takeaways from this episode 1, season 2 of One Foot Down, brother?
Yeah, I think going through some of these names, like obviously We had some bigger names. We had some smaller names. My big one takeaway is there is values. If you don't have to reach on this certain player in an offense, you can get a similar teammate of his and get a value on him in the later rounds, if that makes sense.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Sire Gaines is going before Malik Sherrod, and Malik Sherrod has the potential to be Boise State's running back one. And we all know what Boise State's running back room has been able to produce for us. So the fact that you're able to get Malik Sherrod in the teens and Sire Gaines is going in the single-digit rounds, I mean, that's a great point there. Make sure you do your homework because college fantasy football knowledge is king. And if you subscribe to Fantasy and Frames and you follow the 1 Foot Down podcast, we are hoping to help you obtain that knowledge so you can chase those trophies, baby. That's what it's all about, man.
Absolutely.
Anything else, brother, before we get out of here? Let them know where they can find you. Let them know what you got going on because you're one of the hardest workers at Fantasy and Frames. Toot your horn, Aidan.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. You can follow me on Twitter /X, obviously at A-Weingartner13. I'm on Dynasty 365 from a Dynasty NFL fantasy football perspective every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern with Jorge and JT here at Fantasy and Frames. I'm covering articles that range from this season. I'll be covering CFF with you, but I'm going to be writing some rookie, fantasy fallout articles for the Fantasy Frames site, which we have a lot of awesome writers and contributors there. So I'll be blending CFF content, NFL fantasy content. I just can't wait for my first full football season from both avenues at Fantasy and Frames. It's been awesome so far with you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for joining in. Everybody in the chat, anybody that just watched, make sure you like the stream, subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames channel. We are coming on every second week at 1 Foot Down on Fantasy and Frames until we get into the college season, where we'll be grinding every week, bringing you starts, sits, guys you should be picking up on waivers, and so on. Our next episode is going to be talking about true freshmen and some of the true freshmen that are entering campus and can be impactful for college fantasy football drafters. Fantrax has done a great job updating their rosters and their player pools so we don't have to draft placeholders because no one likes drafting placeholders.
That's going to be fun because I feel like freshmen are always great values every year.
You find Jeremiah Smith was going in the teens last year. DeCorian Moore is going in the teens.
Yeah, people were expecting him to be like wide receiver 3 in the Ohio State depth chart.
Wide receiver 1. Jorge Edwards, thanks for tuning in. Jorge, he said this was awesome. Appreciate all the questions in the chat and the comments. Good work tonight, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. And follow Rob Thomas, Evening Gang. Evening, Rob. We appreciate you chiming in. I'm Chris Battisdale. You can find me at FFChrisB. But more importantly, make sure you follow at Fantasy in Frames to get fantasy football content across the board. DFS, draft, Fourth and Frames bringing you redraft content, Dynasty 365, the Stew with JT Brew, Dynasty Evaluation with John McGlynn. I'm sure I'm missing so much other great content on the Fantasy and Frames channel. I'm going to have this written down next time so when I close, I can list you all the great stuff we
just
got.
Go through all this stuff.
Exactly. Stacy's doing the great stuff with the women best ball tournament, so make sure you're checking that stuff out. They got the draft show. But that's it for us. Like always, we appreciate everyone tuning in. You can find me at FFChrisB. You can find Aidan at A Weingartner 13. That's it for us. See you next